In this video, we'll discuss the features on Andre the Giant's face that pointed to leakage in his kidney and genetic system, as well as signs of his compassionate nature. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. For today's face reading, we're looking at Andre the Giant. I've been looking at faces recently. I'm always doing this for the channel, and sometimes the pathology that we see in people, and what I mean by pathology is, in Andre the Giant's case, he had acromegaly, which is a hormonal disorder that makes you grow excessively. So technically that's a pathological pattern and part of what contributed to his early death, I believe at 46. So in any case, if you're new to my channel, welcome, but please go up here and watch the 5-minute crash course face reading video. That'll give you a good orientation to what this is and what it isn't. And in the spirit of what I've been talking about recently in my videos, I want to focus on this reading from going backwards. So what I mean by that is, typically the way people approach face reading is they read the theory, they watch my videos, they do this kind of thing, and they look at facial features and say, well, this means this about you. And while you can do that and sort of make some associations, which are often true, I think when you're learning face reading and you want to be better at face reading, the more optimal way to go about it is to look at a person's face, assess their personality, and then try to find the face reading theoretical principles that are in face reading and try to find them on their face. So again, talk to a person, get to know them, see what their personality is like, and then look for face reading theory to link up and to find some congruency. And when you do this, instead of just going the other way, you learn a bit faster and a bit better. And I think it makes face reading more organic. So that being said, the first thing I want to talk about with Andre the Giant is the size, the length, and the magnitude of how big he was. So while, yes, he has some very dominant features in terms of facial structure. So obviously his bone structure is very large, but the size with the bone structure is what stands out the most to me. It's that bone structure with that immense size. So this is going to point to Jing. When we look at the bone structure in a person, we're looking at the genetic makeup and how it's expressing. When it's excessively large, typically this means that the Jing is in overdrive. So very large people usually have sort of a surplus of Jing that's being expressed. He had a hormonal condition that was making it worse. So he got bigger as he got older and what contributed to his health problems. So I want to talk about that first and foremost. And then we'll get into sort of the personality stuff and then what I'm seeing in his face. So with that large dominant bone structure, we want to think again, Jing metrics. Now, when we talk about Jing, one of the areas that you can see this on the face that we don't always think about is the teeth. If you look at Andre the Giant's teeth, they're very small. So it's said that the teeth are the terminus of the kidney energy. In Chinese medical theory, the kidneys store the Jing. They house the Jing. They hold our genetic essence and constitution. So when looking at him, interestingly, he's got this surplus of Jing expression in terms of his size, which is technically an excess pathology, right? Producing too much hormone and getting very large. But that's also like a deficiency. There's a problem in the Jing system, and we can actually see this in his teeth. So the very small teeth, especially for someone his size, mind you, as he got bigger, his teeth probably looked smaller, but even on a regular sized person, that's a pretty gummy smile. There's a lot of gum and very small teeth. So on his size, those small teeth looked even smaller as he got larger. But what this points to typically, this being, the teeth being the terminus of the kidney energy, sort of the visual external marker for the kidney system, his kidneys were weak. When the teeth are small like that, typically that means like there's an aberration in the Jing, and the Jing hasn't expressed really well. And in his case, it was kind of going in overdrive. But that overdrive is the Jing not expressing well. So that's one. Two, what I was also drawn to was the emotional instinctual dominance of his face. So the three sectors that we talk about on the face are from the top of the hairline to the eyebrows, that's the mental sphere, the height. Then from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, that's the pragmatic or practical sphere. And then from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin is the emotional and instinctual. The higher these regions are, the more allocation you see vertically dictates how much energy is sort of running in that system. So Andre the Giant, as he got older, and I'm sure this was exacerbated by his condition, but he had a very long sector here from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. That's a very long sector, which means emotionality and instinctuality, if that's a word, those were probably running in overdrive, and this is something you want to pay attention to. Now, I wasn't able to find a lot of information about him being overly emotional. It's a hard thing to research, but what I will read about him real quick is this. So Andre the Giant had a complex personality, appearing intimidating in the ring, but often described by those close to him as a gentle giant who was kind, considerate, humble, and funny. He loved his fans, especially children, but often felt self-conscious and uncomfortable with the constant attention he received due to his size. He was a known prankster, a heavy drinker, and found solace in hobbies like watching QVC and enjoying the peace of his ranch away from the public eye. Now, real quick, I want to talk about his health conditions too. Acromegaly, hormonal disorder that causes the pituitary gland to produce excessive growth hormone, leading to his gigantism. It also resulted in enlarged hands, feet, and facial features. He also had joint pain and arthritis as a result of his condition because he was so big. He also battled diabetes, which he had to manage, alcoholism, drank a ton of alcohol, but apparently a lot of that alcohol drinking was to remediate or to buffer the pain he was experiencing in his body from being so large. He also had other health issues, including obesity, sleep apnea, and spinal cord compression. So he ended up dying at 46 from congestive heart failure. So when we look at this, he also has like a big mouth. He's got these big features. There's some earth to his face, very fleshy and very big. The earth element themes that we want to think about are compassion and kindness. There's usually a humble, slow, and steady energy that comes with big earth features, which he has, big lips, big mouth, and kind of a fleshy face, fleshy nose, fleshy, meaty brow bone, fleshy cheeks. Everything about him was kind of full. So this points to like an over-engagement of earth to a degree, but looking at those traits about him, kind, considerate, humble, and funny. So he doesn't have a ton of fire on his face, but he does have warm eyes when he smiles. His eyes would smile and he would get some nice little smile lines. But he was still in his 40s. We might have seen more of those fire element metrics show up as he got older. But this definitely holds true to his face. And we want to think that as our face continues to shift, in theory, the personality metrics and the energetic imprints of those elements, right? If certain parts of the face get larger, it's only going to follow suit, according to face reading theory, that the holographic template of your face is also a representation of your mind, body, and spirit. Therefore, those things are going to shift with it. So the last thing I'll talk about was the deficiency I was seeing around his eyes. So he was definitely dark under the eyes. When we get dark under the eyes, this is an indication that the kidney system is weak. So we can see on him sort of like these constitutional markers, like he had a surplus of Jing running, but also a deficiency. So the kidneys house the Jing, the constitution, the essence of a person. And so if we're seeing this darkness, that means the kidneys are running a bit weak. Then with him also, we see the small teeth. So when you start to see like pathological markers, multiple pathological markers coming from the same system, you really want to start to have this picture being painted that you're honing in on, say, the Jing system. So for someone like Andre the Giant, for as big as he was, in the lifestyle guidance that I would be saying is, I don't know how people treat gigantism. I don't know what the therapies are, how it's gone down this road. But I would have said, minimizing all things that are going to deplete you further, like alcohol and eating crummy food. Given his condition, he would have died young anyway. He may have been able to extend his life through lifestyle habits, but again, this was, I think, in the 90s when he died, and living the life of a wrestler, he had, I'm sure, probably not the healthiest of rhythms over time to his body, all of that alcohol. In any case, I thought his face was pretty interesting and wanted to touch on these points and give you some frameworks to think about in relation to face reading, because again, when we study pathology, this is a good way to assess face reading and to see how a person's personality is expressing in real time. All right, y'all, take care.